Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are continuing our ongoing coverage of the civil war taking place inside the former state of Ethiopia and the Eritrean invasion of northern Tigray. So, we have now hit about 9-10 days post extermination agreement taking place inside of South Africa. The alleged peace agreement that was agreed upon by some parties that took place in South Africa. I think we have to continue to look at what happened in South Africa in terms of quite possibly something rather nefarious. But I would say at this point, we will continue to investigate that, watch that very, very closely. But what is happening on the ground inside of Tigray is the status quo. So while there is not incredibly heavy fighting taking place, the Tigrayan Defense Forces still control Mekelle. They still control Adigrat. They still have Eritrean forces surrounded it near Adwa. The Eritrean army of B loyalist forces have tenuous control over Axum Shire and the road leading from Shire up towards Shiraro and the Eritrean border. The B loyalist forces continue to control Alamata and areas near Alamata. And that is what is happening on the ground right now. The likelihood that the Tigrayan Defense Forces would simply lay down its arms is rather remote at this point. The idea that they would hand over, the Tigrayan Defense Forces, would hand over heavy weapons, and more importantly, hand over its light weapons, AK-47s, rifles, heavy machine guns, light machine guns, to the Abiy loyalist forces, again, very remote. Because the big question is what happens after that were to take place. And I think many persons watching what has happened in the past, especially with the Eritrean State Security Services, the Abiy loyalist forces, what is happening right now in Oromia, what has happened in Oromia and other places as well, under the regime of Abiy Ahmed, things often turn pretty dark very quickly. Federal police forces come into the night and you are disappeared. So there has to be some ability to prevent that sort of activity from happening. And given the state of affairs inside the former state of Ethiopia, and specifically how the Prosperity Party governs, how Abiy Ahmed governs, how Isaias Afwerki governs Eritrea, the despotic regime in Eritrea, the likelihood, again, that the Tigrayan Defense Forces, the TDF, would simply hand over its only ability to defend itself and the Tigrayan people, again, is relatively remote. As we continue to get more and more days and weeks past what occurred in South Africa, the likelihood that this agreement will completely unravel is becoming more and more likely. Given what happened on the ground in the Tigray region in late 2020, with the onset of that so-called law enforcement operation that took place, in which Abiy Ahmed granted Isaias Afwerki in the Eritrean army the authority to enter Ethiopia, which then became the former state of Ethiopia. So given what has happened in the past, and knowing what has happened in the past with the rape and pillage of the Tigray region by Abiy loyalist forces and allied Amharan militia groups, in conjunction with the Eritrean army, the likelihood that the Tigrayan Defense Forces would just simply disarm itself and invite these two regimes further into the Tigray region is something that is unlikely. While there are some supporters of this agreement, there are many, many more that are against the agreement. Not the agreement specifically, but the cause and then the effect that the agreement would bring. Again, once the Tigrayan Defense Forces lays down its weapons, there is nothing preventing the regime security forces of Abiy Ahmed to march in and exterminate all opposition inside of the Tigray region. It may not happen immediately, and it may not be a mass event, but I can assure you it would happen. And it may happen gradually in the dark of night while the rest of the world is not watching. So obviously, that is the biggest concern right now for a lot of those persons who are against what happened in South Africa. In other news, we can now confirm that in Oromia, Western Oromia, the town of Mendi, right here, was repeatedly hit by Abiy Ahmed tactical airstrikes. In the ensuing airstrikes, more than 80 civilians have been killed over the course of those airstrikes. As we know, the Oromo Liberation Army has taken control of a chain of towns running from Mende all the way to Nakemte in the east. And the regime of Abiy Ahmed continues to launch tactical airstrikes against those towns. And then within the last 24, 48 hours, especially, Mendi has been hit rather hard by drones and fixed-wing aircraft. The continued operation by the Oromo Liberation Army right now is going probably much better than originally planned. The regime security forces of Abiy Ahmed, the federal police forces, regional militia forces, regular Abiy loyalist forces are having great difficulty right now maintaining control of the chain of towns running from Mende down to Nejo, Gimbi, and towards Nakemte. The ability of regime security forces to retake some of these taken towns, and this map is not completely up to date as well. So the area in red would indicate regime-controlled towns. The area in yellow would indicate Oromo Liberation Army towns. And at this point, we believe the OLA is in many of these towns, running from Mende all the way to Nakemte. But we'll continue to monitor, report, and bring you more information as it happens, as we continue to watch what is happening on the ground. We continue to watch the situation in the Tigray region as well, and we will have more very, very soon. Thank you for joining us today. More to come. And as always, have a good day.